Are you thinking about pursuing music in 2025 and forward as a viable musical career? Well, I got some advice for you. Don't quit your day job. Let's talk about it. Hello and welcome to Tim Conley Drums. Well, as you can tell from my intro, this video might not be the most encouraging and uplifting video for musicians, but I'm getting real today, guys. I've been doing this a long time. If you're new to my channel, I've been a working musician for 40 plus years. And I have toured and I have taught drums for 40 years. And I've had an entire and full career as a musician. So I'm here today to tell you, quite frankly, don't quit your day job. And the reason is, well, so here's my list of comments I'm going to make today. I'm going to try and cover them all, believe it or not, but I'm going to make it short. But this is my list of reasons why you should not quit your day job. So this is a pretty extensive list, and I'm going to try and get through all of the points on here because I think that it's important for everybody to know, not trying to be negative, but I want you guys to know that being a musician is not all it's cracked up to be in 2025. Okay, now, so having worked and been a musician basically my entire life, or at least my adult life, I can give you guys some pretty good tips as to why you shouldn't quit your day job. Now, normally on my channel, I'm pushing people to pursue music, don't give up on your dreams, pursue your goals. That isn't changed. That hasn't changed. I still want you to pursue your dreams. You know, if you want to become a musician, go for it. I'm not here to change anybody's mind about pursuing music as a viable, sustainable career. I'm just here to tell you the realities of what it's like to be a full-time, career-oriented musician. So, first of all, some of the silly things that people just don't think about. You've got gigs where you're just tired of carrying your gear around. The gigs, the load in is terrible, the load out is terrible. And I'll give you an example for you guys that are local to my area. There's a place called the Franklin House in Streetsville. And quite often the load in is up these metal stairs that are outside of the building because where you're actually going to play is on, I think, the third floor of the building. So you got to climb up these metal stairs. And in January, when it's minus 30 outside, and these, for whatever reason, these people have not shoveled off these stairs because they don't give a shit about the musicians. Well, you've got to climb up snow-covered, icy stairs with your gear. Now, I fell down those stairs. That's why I'm mentioning this. It is not easy loading in and loading out gear in crappy situations. There's also a few other places, especially in Toronto. Park your car and try to load the gear in and out on a busy street. Everybody's honking at you. You've got seconds to get, you're in a panic because you got to move your stuff out of your vehicle so quickly, put it on the street. Hopefully, one of your band members will stay there and watch your gear so your gear doesn't get stolen. Because I had that happen to me once in Guelph, I think it was. I took some gear out. I had it in my car, was in an alleyway right at the venue. So there wasn't that stress of having to, load in and load out super quick. I'm in an alleyway, but I was basically the only vehicle there. So I load my stuff out and I got to go park my car because you can't leave it in this alleyway. It's just a load in, load out zone. So I go and park my car. I come back. Don't I see some clown walking away with a tom and a snare? Well, he got tackled. I took him down and said, "What the F are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, sorry, man, sorry," or some stupid excuse. And I just took my stuff back and called the cops. And the police came and he got his ass arrested, as should be, because that's ridiculous. Stealing my stuff when I'm just, dropping it off and parking? Ridiculous. So this is the shit you got to deal with. Okay, now let's continue. A little bit of a rant here today. Shitty bar owners, terrible management, dealing with people. I'm only going to cover these slightly, but just dealing with terrible people as a whole can get you down. Now, I'm not saying that happened on every gig. I'm just saying it can happen. You're dealing with terrible bar owners where they come along and they're constantly messing with your sound. So your band has a certain sound, and then the owner, oh, you guys are too loud, comes by and cranks everything down. You can't hear a thing. It's just stuff like that. I just can't deal with it. And if you're doing bar gigs, so I've talked about this a million times, so I'm not going to get into it. They don't pay. There's no money in bar gigs. So what's the point? You put 12 hours into a day to get a gig. In other words, all your travel time, all your prep time, you got hours of rehearsal on top of that 12 hours. You've got to get to the gig. Driving through Toronto is absolutely hell. Driving through LA, hell. New York, hell. If you're driving, you're a drummer. It's hard to carry gear unless it's very, very compact in a subway system. Now, if you live in LA, you live in Toronto, you live in New York, a lot of musicians do that. They have a compact setup and they move around the city on their gigs using the local transport. I get that. But I don't live inside of the cities where I normally play. I do play the odd gig in the city I live in, but not that much. And if I do, I still drive to it. I'm not one for taking local transit. So you've got parking nightmares, you've got transit nightmares, and you're not getting paid very much money. I can remember I was just telling my wife stories about being in Toronto and getting parking tickets. Now, the parking tickets weren't because I illegally parked. I parked in a correct spot. But I'm working. I then don't put enough money in, or I should say I put enough money in, but it ran out. I didn't run out there to put some more money in. What happens? I'm working. When I finally do come out, parking ticket. Are you kidding me? My whole night's money gone for nothing. I made zero money because I lost it in a parking ticket and gas expense to and from the gig. It's a nightmare. Okay. So low money. On top of low money, you're self-employed if you're a full-time musician. When you're self-employed, getting credit can be an absolute nightmare. So you want to buy a car, you don't have the full money to buy the car, you want to buy a house, you want to put anything on finance. Even getting a credit card can be difficult. Now, everything I'm telling you here today is not for the wealthy musicians. This is not for the musicians that have made it big, that play in Bon Jovi and Deep Purple and Journey and stuff like that. These are the working musicians I'm talking about. Guys that aren't famous. They work, they want to be a musician, they want to play music. Their life is all about passion and music. And they get out and they're working 6 days a week, 7 days a week, struggling as a musician. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about famous bands where all your gear is, you show up in a bus, you stay in a nice hotel, you get fed really well, you got a guy that sets up and tears down your gear. This is rare. Being famous as a musician is very rare. I'm talking about the thousands and thousands of guys that are dragging their drums around, their guitars, their amps, their bass amps that weigh 1,000 pounds, up and down stairs. They got nobody helping them. The regular Joe musician. That's what this is targeted towards. So trying to buy a house. I mean, for me, I was actually very lucky. I own a house. I own several vehicles. I've done well, but the struggle has been real. Meaning, years ago when I was young, I was driven by passion to succeed, and I never gave up. I still haven't given up. At 60 years of age, I haven't given up. Okay, so for you young musicians coming up now, the thing is that you're going to find extreme struggle nowadays trying to be a musician, and with the cost of living the way that it is. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. When you're self-employed in almost any job, it's difficult to get any kind of a credit. Now, if you work in a music school, you work for an orchestra, you work for a theater, you have jobs that actually take taxes off you, and then it legitimizes it a little bit more. You're a music teacher. You know, you work in a music school, like I work in a music school. I noticed a huge change when it came to getting credit working in a music school versus being totally self-employed. The music school thing legitimizes that you're getting steady money, and lenders don't get thrown off by that. Self-employment, there's no guarantee you're ever going to make a dime. That's why they're always nervous with you. So, I believe doing music for fun and as a hobby, 100% do it. It's going to make you smarter. It's going to make you happier. Music is a beautiful thing. It's wonderful. Or if you do want to make some money as a musician, put out your own music, use YouTube and other social media to do what I'm doing right now, for example. I make money off these videos. Also, the weekend warriors. The weekend warriors are the main guys I'm actually sort of talking to right now. In other words, you work a day job, then you play on the weekends as a musician. Your soul is satisfied for music. When you're a full-time musician and you're having to rely on the hustle that takes place for musicians, getting yourself out there, getting yourself known, getting your music out, getting people to hire you, auditions, travel, like all the things involved with becoming a musician and maintaining yourself in a scene can be very exhausting. Now, I'm done with all that because having done this as long as I have, I've established myself in the scene. And that's the key. You've got to establish yourself in the scene. Now, here's one of the negatives. You go off on a tour. You go off on a ship. You're on a cruise ship. You're touring with a band, and you're gone for long periods of time, 6 months, 9 months, a year, let's say. Then you come back. Your work is done. Now you've got to reestablish yourself in the scene. You got to get that teaching job back again. You've got to go around to different schools and hope there's an opening and that they're interested in hiring you. You got to get back with local bands again if you want to get working again in terms of gigs. You've got to get yourself established back in the studio scene if you're a studio level musician. So, you know, there's all these factors. When you leave and you come back, there's always this element of reestablishing yourself. Now, over time of doing that, that diminishes. For me, I was very lucky. I would go away, I would come back, and I would immediately get a job teaching. I would get jobs immediately with bands. I would get jobs doing some studio stuff, and I was able to carry that forward. But when you're young and just starting out and nobody knows who you are, man, it can be really, really tough. So another thing is just that sometimes you're dealing with crappy people in the music industry. You know, agents. Oh my God, they can be such lowlifes. You know, band managers sometimes in bands, crappy people. Even your bandmates if they're crappy. Also, like I mentioned at the beginning, dealing with owners of venues, bars in particular, or dealing with the managers of those venues. Even sometimes the staff can be difficult, you know. Another thing is it's very, very hard on your family when you're off touring. Also, my wife tolerates it in the past, but it's all evening work. You're very, very rarely, unless you're doing studio work or teaching from home, you're basically not going to be working during the day. Your days are free. It's almost all evenings. Well, if you have a family, they go to school during the day, the kids, and your wife probably works during the day, and then your evening, you're off. So they're at home, the kids, the wife, they're at home in the evening, but you're off teaching, you're off gigging, you're off doing whatever. It's usually an evening job. So if you're okay with working evenings, then pursue music. But If you're a day job worker, you want to be at home in the evening and work during the day, music is not for you. Okay. So I'm sort of referring to my list here as I'm going along here. Some of it I've already covered. Now, of course, drugs and alcohol abuse. That's a no-brainer. How many musicians have died from drugs and alcohol? Now, when you're a lower level musician, meaning you're not famous, and you're doing music for fun, drugs and alcohol don't factor in quite as much because a lot of the stars turn to drugs and alcohol as a way of relieving themselves from the pressure that they're under. Now, lower end bands that are just doing, local gigs, the odd gig here and there, the weekend warrior, those guys aren't under any pressure. You're doing it for fun, and you're doing it in front of people that don't really care, honestly. You're not playing in front of 100,000 people and millions of dollars are at stake, and the record label is like, we want you to make us money. You don't have to worry about that when you're a lower end musician. So that stress isn't there. The drugs and the alcohol as a real serious problem. I'm not saying people that are on lower level musicians can't have problems with that too, but there tends to be a higher level of problems with drugs and alcohol with higher level musicians because they can't handle the fame, the pressure, the whatever. Now, very few of us get to that level. If you are thinking about becoming famous and you want to be rich and you want everyone to know who you are and you want to be in a famous band and you want to be a famous drummer, you want to be on the cover of Modern Drummer magazine, you're pursuing the wrong career. This is not a job you go into for fame. Now, we all, as young people, dream of the bright lights, dream of the stage, dream of girls chasing us down the street like the Beatles. And we see that and we fantasize about it. I get it. I was guilty of that too. But as you grow as a musician, you realize that the fame is fleeting. 1 minute you can be in the spotlight and the next minute you're freaking homeless. So, fame is fleeting. Don't go into music for money and fame and screaming fans and all that. None of that really matters. Now, I will admit, I've been guilty of enjoying the fans and, the cheers. I think we all are. When we play a show and the people react and they cheer and they clap and everything, we all love that. That's normal. But don't go into the business with that as your sole motivation. Narcissistic people that are in the business are the worst. They're the worst to work with, and they're terrible to be around because all they care about is the fame and the fortune and all that. And that's not why people go into music, in my opinion. That's not why I went into it. I mean, I did have dreams of fame and fortune and all that. You got to be realistic, though, people. You got to be realistic. How many people make it to the NHL? How many people make it to the Olympics? How many people make it to Michael Jackson's level of fame? Very, very, very few. Probably less than 1% of people make that kind of fame. So you've got to be realistic. Like I said, if you want to do this for fun, part-time, make a few extra bucks and, pay for your guitar addiction, your drum set addiction, whatever, fine. But if you're going to pursue music in 2025 as a sole career, I don't think it's a great idea. It's just a bad scene now compared to what it was. Back when I was young and up and coming, the scene was a lot bigger. The indie scene was bigger. The music scene was bigger. Opportunities were more. Companies like record labels would actually come out and see bands. Who goes out and sees bands from record labels anymore? Barely anybody. So that's not even an issue, really. To make it big in the industry nowadays, it's harder than ever. So I'm just giving you guys the realistic approach. I'm not trying to bust any dreams, nothing like that. I'm being real. There's no pension. There's no benefits. There's few perks. So what do you do when you're 70 years old and you're at the end of your music career and you can't play anymore and you didn't save any money? You got no benefits. Now you got all kinds of illnesses and sicknesses that require medication. You have to pay for that out of your pocket. How do you do that if you don't have any money saved up? You got no pension. It's a tough haul. If you're a musician, you have to save, whether it be RRSPs, throwing money in the bank, hiding money under your mattress, whatever. You got to save money. It's hard for people sometimes to save money. As a musician, people live paycheck to paycheck or gig to gig if you're a musician. Also, in some cases, guys resort to being a beggar, where you're playing on the street and you're busking for money. Now, I don't have a problem with that in any way, shape, or form. I personally have never done that, but I've seen it everywhere. I mean, we all have. We see people playing guitar. We see little bands playing on the side of the street. And that's fine. It was never something for me. When I was a music student, I used to see guys in my class going out and busking, and there was this one particular hippie guy I remember in my class in music school, and I would see him all over the streets all the time. When I'd see him at school, and then I'd see him in the evening or on the weekends busking. And there's nothing wrong with that, but to me, it's just not something I personally ever wanted to do. I've never done it. Now, the other thing is, sometimes you'll actually do gigs where it's a ticketed venue. Ooh, ticketed venue. That means they're going to make money. No, it's not. You got to sell tickets. Also, you'll often have a hat at those particular gigs where, okay, 50 people showed up. You got to split that with other bands. You got to split that with the venue. And so you're barely making any money at all between the 4 or 5 of you in the band. So what do? You put a hat out, or you put a guitar case or a drum case or something out where people can actually tip you. It's a form of begging, but it's a reality in terms of music. Other thing is, you might have merchandise. You might have t-shirts, you might have hats. Tim Conley Drums hat. You might have CDs, records, whatever. So you can sell your merch if the venue allows it. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I actually encourage you to do that because it brings in extra money, promotes the band, and it gets your music and your gear out to people. So that I actually encourage you to do if you have merchandise and you're in a band, or you're a YouTuber like me and you're trying to sell your merch. Get it out there for people to buy. No matter what, you always have to promote yourself. You've always got to sell yourself. You got to sell the band. That never ever ends. Promote doesn't mean anybody's going to come out. I can remember the days when we used to staple a band poster everywhere on all kinds of posts and signs and tape them on mailboxes and whatever. You would have to go out and spend a day putting posters up for your band, for your big gig when you're 20 years old and you got your big gig is coming up and you got to go out there and post all that stuff. I cannot be bothered doing that at all now, but like I said, this is in the beginning of developing your career, developing the band. I don't have to do that anymore, but there was a time when I would spend hours and hours and hours outside. There was no internet, so you had to self-promote by stapling your poster in the grocery store and on posts and lamp posts and whatever. So it never ends. Now, like I said, very few make it big and famous. There are no loads of cash involved in the music industry. Can you make a living? Yes, I'm living proof you can make a living. But in 2025, making a living as a musician is a very difficult thing. Now, I went to music school. Sadly, the music school that I attended, one of them, I went to music school twice, but one of the music schools I went to, they're shutting down the program. I think the program might even be ending now, or it's either now or next year. It's ending, and the music program is shut down. There's no money in the music program because people are not signing up to become musicians anymore because of reality. 2025, it's, like I was just telling my daughter this morning, if you listen to the top 40 on Spotify, there's only one band, it's Coldplay. And out of the other 39 bands, how many of them have live drums and live guitar? Very few. It's almost all programmed and keyboards and machines. There's very few actual instruments. How many horns are being used? How many actual acoustic pianos are being used in modern music? Very few compared to years ago. So the industry that develops musicians in schools, it's dying out, unfortunately, because the work is just not there for musicians. So, I mean, that part of it is very, very difficult. The industry is loaded with hardship, drugs, booze, crime, corruption, sex and sexual assaults, manipulation, greed, pettiness, weak-minded people, narcissistic people, evil people, screwed up people, racism, hatred of people that are different. And very much I see this in the music environment. So don't quit your day job. Thanks very much for watching. I'm sorry if this was a bummer video for some of you guys, but this had to come out. I have to be real. I have to be honest. I've made a career as a musician, but nowadays in 2025, if you're 18 years old and starting today, it's a lot tougher than it was when I was 18 years old in 1983. Yeah, 1983 I was 18, and things were a lot different back then than what they are now. So as a drum teacher, what do I tell my students that say to me they want to become full-time musicians? Well, I had one student who's a plumber that makes good money as a plumber, but he says he hates his job. He hates working for people. Even though he has his own business, he just doesn't care for the people that he works with and whatever, you know. He just doesn't like the job, and he admires me that I can make a living as a musician. But I told him, do not quit your plumbing job because it's too late. For starters, he's 53 years old. Imagine quitting your regular, good paying job that, you know, that pays everything in your life and you're comfortable. He's got a nice house, nice vehicle. He looks after himself. You know, he looks after his kids, his spouse, whatever. And he decides he wants to be a musician, and he quits that and then tries to struggle from the age of 53. If you're going to pursue music, you've got to start young. You cannot start at 53, quit your job, unless you get a hit song or something. But like I said earlier, the fame is not the reason why, or the money is not the reason why you pursue music, because there is no money unless you are a big star. There is no money. And even if you are a big star, in some cases, the record companies just take it all anyways. So young students, however, that I have 17, 18, that tell me they're interested in pursuing music, I always tell them to keep a backup. So pursue music, pursue it with your heart and soul, practice your ass off. You've got to become highly, highly skilled. Use many different venues of income. So promote yourself online. Get your music out online. Get videos of you performing. Then get out and play in different bands out on, you know, in the public so that people see you. And then try to promote your bands. Try to promote yourself. Try to do merchandise. Try to get in at some point, educate yourself and get into teaching. There's many, many avenues that young people can pursue that's different now than it was when I was young. However, keep a backup. A lot of people, they just go into things, they don't know what they're doing, and they just stumble into it, and then they do it for a little while, and then they realize, holy shit, this is a lot harder than I thought. Those people are going to quit for sure because they don't have any kind of a backup plan. You don't have to quit if you have a backup plan. You can still pursue music. You can still do music. You can still teach. You can still play. You can still work for an orchestra, a band, etc., 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 but have another plan just in case all of that fails. So my advice to my young students and any student of mine, if you want to pursue music as a career, always have a backup just in case, because you just never know. Being a musician is very, very wrapped with unsurety. So to be safe, Have a backup plan. People always think that there's so much glory to being a musician, that being on tour, the fans, the money, you get to see the country, you get to see different places. Now, that is true. All of that can be true, but it's not true for the majority of us. Now, I do have a student right now who's very successful. He's doing great. He's living out his dreams. He's touring in Europe. I don't know what his financial situation is, but based on the crowds that I've seen at his gigs, at the videos and pictures that he's been putting out, he seems to be doing well. Now, I'm actually going to be talking to him soon. I'm going to make some effort to reach out to him and just see how he's doing, because I think he's back from Europe now. He was in Sweden. He was at the Sweden Rock Fest. His band, The Commoners, is doing really, really well, and I'm thrilled for Adam. So Adam is the exception, not the rule in this situation. But Adam, amazing. I'm super happy for you. This video might not be for you because he's actually doing really, really well. And I'm super stoked for him. I'm really happy for him. But it's rare to be doing what Adam is doing. Plus, he's worked his tail off. Unbelievably hard worker to get to where he is at. So, it shows you that you put your mind to something, you can do it. But for a lot of people, they just quit. They just can't handle what happens to us as musicians on that ladder going up. And most of us get kicked off that ladder constantly and keep getting up and keep getting up. And I'm one of those. I've been kicked off the ladder, kept getting up, kept getting up. But that was, back years ago. Nowadays, it's a little bit more difficult to get yourself back up on that ladder. But keep trying. So anyways, guys, thanks very much for watching. Don't quit your day job. See ya.